Welcome back, listeners. You're listening to The Witching Hour, and in today's episode, we're actually starting our first episode of Campfire Stories. So, for today, we are actually going to be reading 3 different horror stories that we found on the internet. I have mine, Morticia has hers, and in the end, we're going to compare and rate them to see which ones were the scariest. So the first story is called Grandma's Light is Always On, and this was posted by Saint_Entropy. In one corner of my grandma's living room stood a lamp that was almost never turned off. She would change the bulb every week like clockwork, waiting until the afternoon sunlight poured through the windows and filled the room. Even then she hurried, holding her breath until the deed was done and the lamp was back on. I would ask her about it once in a while. Each time she would smile softly, tussle my hair, and promptly change the subject. I didn't learn the truth until I was 13, the first time I turned off the lamp. I just wanted to see what would happen. Grandma screamed and she walked into the darkened living room, a plate of cookies falling from her hands and crashing to the floor. I could hear her praying under her breath as she raced to turn the light back on. Tears were shining in her eyes when she turned to me, her lips pressed thin. Without warning, she slapped me hard across the face. Grandma had never so much as raised her voice before, and I was too shocked to cry. She cried enough for both of us, gathering me up in her arms and begging for my forgiveness. With her face buried in my shoulder, she finally told me about the lamp. It was a ghost lamp, she said, ever since she and my grandpa had bought the house back when they first arrived in America. The spirits of the dead had plagued her. Only when her burden threatened to drive her mad did she ask Grandpa for help. She had expected him to laugh her out of the house, but he had surprised her by nodding gravely. It was he who had first lit the ghost light, and as long as that beacon burned through the darkness, she had never seen another spirit. I stopped visiting my grandma after that. It started gradually at first, missing a day here and there, but by the time I received news of her death, I hadn't seen her in over 10 years. As her only living relative, I shouldn't have been surprised when I inherited her house. Yet, as I sat in her lawyer's office, listening to him read her will, I was speechless. I had a difficult time paying attention after that, absorbed as I was with the business of remembering. So much love had filled those walls, so many happy memories. As I thought of my tiny, sterile apartment in the city, I quickly made my decision. I was almost overwhelmed by emotion as I walked through the front door. Everything looked exactly as I remembered it from my childhood. Houseplants still cluttered the windowsills, decorative bird plates still hung on the walls, and the ghost light still burned in the living room. Seeing the old lamp sent a chill down my spine. I froze in my tracks, the smile fading from my lips, and I couldn't help but think of the night Grandma had slapped me so many years ago. I had told my mother about the ghost light the next day, but she had dismissed it as simple old world superstition. It was the same way when she was growing up, she told me, and I shouldn't worry about it. Still, I couldn't shake the conviction that I had finally seen the true depths of my grandma's lunacy. I ran my fingers through the fringe on the lampshade as I thought, a bloom of sadness darkening my nostalgia. Sighing heavily, I turned the ghost light off with a decisive click. Something woke me later that night. I lay in bed, listening to the darkness until I heard scratching coming from the living room. Rats were the last thing I wanted to deal with at the moment, and I rolled over with a groan, determined to ignore it until the morning. The scratching continued intermittently, constantly jerking me from the edge of my sleep, and I finally had enough. I threw the blankets off me and stormed out into the hall. Moonlight flooded the front of the house, and I didn't bother turning on lights as I made my way to the living room. I knew every inch of the house, even after so many years, and I moved confidently through the dim light. I was furious at having been woken from a dead sleep, and my anger ill prepared me for what I found. An elderly woman was crouched in the corner, her gaunt back to me. She was scratching at the floor where the walls met, stopping every few minutes to cock her head. A gnarl of dread unfurled in the pit of my stomach. I had no idea how this woman had gotten into my house, and though it was obvious she needed help, it took me some time to summon the courage to approach her. My hand shook as I reached out to gently squeeze her shoulder. I meant to ask her where she lived, who her caretaker was, but the words were driven from my mind when she turned and I saw her face. Her eyes were solid black, bottomless pits that didn't reflect the moonlight. Her jaw hung impossibly open, unhinged, and the dark tunnel of her mouth spiraled down into her throat. I had a moment to realize who she was, to recognize the familiar map of wrinkles in her face, the curls of her wispy hair. Then my grandma screamed. I shrieked, stumbling backwards away from the nightmare in the corner. My arms flailed into the air, reaching for the nearest lamp, and my hands touched the ghost light. I yanked the chain, filling the room with light, and she was gone. I never turned off the ghost light after that. After letting the bulb burn out one evening, I began changing it every week just as Grandma had. Eventually I got married, and luckily for me, my wife was tolerant of my strange fixation on the lamp. The light continued to burn, and I lived my life happily enough. But my grandson has been asking about the ghost light lately. Each time he asks, I smile softly, tussle his hair, and promptly change the subject. For some reason, I can't bring myself to tell him the truth. I think about how I pulled away from my grandma, how I thought her crazy, and I keep my mouth shut. I worry, though. I know I won't be around forever, just as I know he will eventually turn off the ghost light. I worry that he might see me then, twisted and wrong, scratching in the corner. So that was my story, and now we're going to hear from Miss Morbid and Morticia.
Okay, so my story, the title is The Cell Phone. A couple of months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, went to watch TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with text messages, and he agreed. At around 11:20, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand to inspect it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken until only one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face.
That was a great story. And now for my number two. This one is called Darkness in the Rearview Mirror. I've always been uneasy driving alone at night. It was the worst the first few times, when I had just gotten my license. But the nagging fear has never gone away to this day. It's disorienting to look into the mirrors and see nothing, and I mean nothing but the consuming blackness of the night. It makes me hesitant to check the mirrors. Should I see this dark void? Or worse, someone sitting in my backseat staring at me. In the summer of 2013, I found myself driving home alone on Highway 902 from a party. It was almost midnight, and needless to say, it was pitch black. As was usual at night, I was on edge. I had the radio off and could hear nothing but the muffled roar of tires on pavement and the dull hum of the engine. I stole a glance into the middle rearview mirror and saw nothing but darkness through the back window. I know that I looked backward and saw nothing. I'm sure of it. Just the seemingly endless black of the night. I remember it so clearly because not 10 seconds later, a car passed me to the left, headlights on. I had one of those sudden adrenaline rushes, like when you think you see a person outside your bedroom window, when it's just a tree, or when you start waking up at night with the feeling of falling. 10 seconds earlier, nothing had been behind me. Suddenly, a car. I drove all the way home, shivering, knowing something was off. The next morning, I found 2 sets of scratches near the back of my van. One was on the left rear, one was on the right. The car was pretty old. They could have been there for months, but that was the first time that I distinctly remembered seeing them. In hindsight, there are 2 possibilities for what happened that night. Possibility 1, by some glitch in reality or something paranormal, this other car had somehow appeared behind me within seconds of me checking my mirror, like some weird ghost crap or something. However, the second option is what makes my blood run cold whenever I consider it. It didn't occur to me months after the fact, but it makes me dread driving alone at night even more. Possibility 2. The car was normal. It had approached me from the rear and passed me to my left. However, something large and wide and as black as a night had been clinging to the rear of my car, obscuring my view through the window and leaving deep scratches on the side. And I had inadvertently driven it home with me.
Damn, that was creepy. I'm gonna start my second story. And this one is called The Crying Lady in the Dakota. The Dakota, an apartment building in New York City, has been home to many rich and famous residents since it opened back in 1884. John Lennon and Yoko Ono moved into the building in 1973. And John was also assassinated outside the structure on December 8, 1980. Before his death, John claimed he saw a crying lady ghost roaming the halls. Then, after John died, Yoko, who still lives in the building, says she witnessed John's ghost sitting at his piano. Yoko said that John told her, "Don't be afraid, I'm still here with you."
It's also a good story. I enjoyed that one. The next one that I'm going to be doing is called Instant Messaging. It all started on the 14th night of March, the night of my parents' 20th wedding anniversary. It was a wonderful, sunny day, if memory serves, surprisingly warm for before the beginning of spring. The beautiful weather was perfect for the atmosphere of the day. Being married for 20 years is obviously a momentous occasion, so my parents had booked a table at our favorite Italian restaurant. Of course, this was a formal occasion, so I had my best suit on. It was 5:33, and I was just straightening my tie when my phone went off. I'd received a message. That's strange, I thought. That never happens. I checked the message. It was from my mom. It was quite a jumble of numbers and letters, but through the vocabulary stew, I could make out one legible phrase. Please help me. It should go without saying that this worried me greatly, so I immediately replied, "Are you okay?" Just as instantly, I got another text which read, "Oops, pocket text." I sighed with all the relief I had and continued to prepare myself. A few minutes later, I received yet another message, this time from my dad. I checked the text, and once again, it was a massive mixture of letters and numbers with the phrase, "Please help me," concealed within. Creepy though this was, my dad was always a joker, so I presumed he was just joking around. Until I was sent another text saying, "Oops, pocket text." Now this sparked panic. Pure, unmistakable panic. Exactly half a minute passed when I received the exact same 2 messages from my sister. This could not be coincidental. It just couldn't. In a state of sheer anxiety, I started to run to the restaurant. I made it about a quarter of the way before I was stopped by a police officer. "Main road's closed," he said. "Huge car crash." This was the exact moment I realized just what had happened. I demanded to see the wreckage, a request which I was surprised was allowed. When I got there, it wasn't the remnants of the car that caught my eye, nor the flames billowing from the destroyed vehicle. No. I was horrified to see the lifeless corpses of my mother, father, and sister. I asked for the estimated time of their deaths. All three of them were killed instantly by the collision at 5:32, a minute before the very first text.
For my last story, this one is called My Great Grandmother's House by 900 Pop TR. 900 Pop TR loves their grandparents but hates their house. The house has been in their family for over a century, and something has always felt off about it. The rooms would always feel cold, despite the air being off, and visitors often report feeling like they were being watched. For about a month, this user and their parents were living in the house. It was during this time that an event happened that terrified them. One night, they woke for no particular reason and went to the bathroom. Suddenly, the door shut and locked behind them. The lock on the door was broken, so it shouldn't have been able to lock, let alone close on its own. Then, the light in the bathroom went out. They had always been interested in ghost hunting in the ghost hunting app on their phone. They used it in the past but assumed it didn't work. The app was supposed to tell its user whatever the ghost was saying. As they opened the app, they felt something or someone breathing down their neck. A few seconds later, the door unlocked and the radar read one word: run. They ran back to hide and hid under the covers until they fell asleep. The next night, they woke again and went into the kitchen for a snack. It was there that they saw a dark figure picking up something from the pantry, turned to them, and then disappeared. They tried to return to their room, but the living room door slammed shut as they walked toward it. Again, they felt someone breathing down their necks. They kept pulling at their door until it finally opened. Back in the room, hiding under the covers, they couldn't sleep because they kept hearing footsteps on the porch. The next night, they decided to try sleeping in the den. Their phone was left open to the ghost hunting app when it picked up a sign and read Quentin, their great grandfather's name. That was the last activity that the user experienced before the end.
Damn.
And that was my last story.
Nice. Okay, so for my stories, I would say Darkness in the Rearview Mirror would be number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two would be Instant Messaging. And number three, Grandma's Light is Always On. And
Oh.
the reason Darkness in the Rearview Mirror is number one is because I feel like we've all been there as far as like driving around and looking behind us and not being able to see anybody and just kind of being alone on the road and then
Yeah.
having a car pop up out of nowhere. Now, that's creepy because you don't know if they're following you, they're just really close to you just
Yeah.
because, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have him go ahead and tell the story of how he thinks his theory was that there was something clinging onto his car that was blocking the whole view. Now that's creepy, because what could that be? Boogeyman? Sasquatch?
Me.
Her?
The world may never know.
Trying to hitch a ride to the nearest Whataburger?
Man.
um, but no, I really like that one. Short and sweet. Um, it's very relatable as far as that. So I feel like that one was definitely my number one. So for my number two, I chose instant messaging because I feel like that's a very like real life scenario that we kind of picture to ourselves. Kind of like, take for example, you're in the shower, right, and you're washing your hair. You have soap on your face. You don't want to open your eyes, and you just hear a bunch of noise coming from like the living room.
Mm-hmm.
Very real scenario, similar to this, where you're getting text messages and it says, "Please help me," and the reply back, "Oh no, that was a mistake. My bad." It's like, that's a red flag right there.
Yeah.
You start thinking otherwise and formulate all these little like ideas in your head, and I don't know, I
Yeah,
feel like
like little scenarios.
yeah, it's very psychological. I really
Yeah.
liked it for that. That was my number two. It was really good. And last, but kind of least, but not really, it was still a good story. Grandma's light is always on. This one.
It was too long. No, I'm just kidding.
um, no, this one was good. I liked the build up for it. Um, I don't know. I guess it just didn't really have me at the edge of my seat or shock me or anything like that. But the build up and the story was great. But if I were to rank them, that's how I would rank mine. Would be Darkness number one, Instant Messaging number two, and Grandma's Light is always on as number three. And well,
So,
dale.
stop. Can you just picture you bald like me? Insane. So, I guess my least favorite one would be the crying lady in Dakota, only because the story was pretty short, and I mean it was still kind of, I guess, a little scary because of the whole John Lennon where he got shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like every hotel is haunted. You know, like
Yeah.
there's always like that spirit, like the what is it, the Cecil Hotel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's why that. I guess I don't know. It was just like seeing it, been there, done that.
Yeah. You've gone to haunted hotels?
Yeah, here in Fort Worth.
What?
Just kidding.
She's not.
There is
from
one in
Worth.
Fort Worth, and I've been wanting to go, but nobody wants to go with me.
There's a couple around down where I'm at, down south. Haven't really checked them out. Been wanting to.
Yeah, but they're really expensive. Like if you want to rent the hotel where like the spirits or ghosts or whatever, it's pretty expensive. So
Damn. We gotta
but yeah,
form a
there's one
group
here
and
for
take a road trip.
right. Call Ghostbusters. I mean, Ghost Adventures.
Call Ghostbusters.
Can I grow up? Okay, but yeah, that's why this one is. I mean, it's so scary. Like, imagine you just like laying there, and then you see like a ghost telling you, "Don't be afraid. I'm still here with you."
Yeah.
Like, no, ma'am. I would have ran out and go home. And then my second one would be the story called The Cell Phone. And did you hear that?
What, the cell phone ringing?
No.
Uh-uh.
Oh, okay. It's because, like, I'm sorry, there's a lot of guys drive here and they have, like, their big ass trucks and they're so loud.
Don't.
So I'm so sorry if you can hear them. Plus, there's, like, a speed bump right next to my house.
These guys are taking off.
I know! They're all flying. The second one, I feel it's like, you could see this in a movie, like, seeing a ghost in the corner of the photo, and it's weird. Like, how can somebody take a picture of you when you're asleep, but you're alone? That's scary and creepy.
Yeah.
So I think this one was a little scarier than the last one, especially if you're like a mom, like her. She's a single mom, and like you all you want to do is like protect your kid. And I'm also a mom, and I'll do anything to protect my kid. Um, so I can like
Relate to that.
yeah, like if somebody would ever like try to hurt my son,
Hmm.
um, starts crying. Ah,
Oh my god, it's gonna get
I'm
emotional.
just kidding. No, all
And
fucking
mijo,
breathing
and
hard.
mijo, and mijo.
Yeah, it's there. But yeah, like it also like you need to like make sure what your kids are watching when they use your phone or a tablet and stuff like that, because you might never know. Because a lot of people like, I don't know if you heard of like the dark web.
Oh yeah.
Like they can hack through your phone or something, and then they can send like weird shit, or I don't know, do something with your phone or tablets and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this one
That
was
gets you
was really
creepy.
creepy. Yeah, this was really creepy, and that's why I like this.
Yeah, I really like that story. That was a good one.
And now the my favorite one. This was called my great grandmother's house. I liked it because I actually used to have that ghost app, the radar
Oh
ghost
really?
app. Yeah, I used to have it, but I don't know if I think because when I had it, I had my journal and I would write down whatever the thing would say. Like it'll say like random words like I don't know, like chair
Mm-hmm.
or west or just random stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you remember, but I was using it one night and it said your name.
Really?
Yeah, it said your name. It said, and I told you about it, and you were like, "What the fuck? That's weird." And then you were like, "Maybe it's because like I have you as like my contacts." I was like, "Yeah,
Oh.
maybe, but how come it's not saying my other contact?"
I don't know. Cute and shit.
So it was kind of weird, and it kind of like I was like, "What the fuck? That's weird." Because like I said, it'll be saying like random things like shoes or like I don't know, grass, like
Ass?
just random stuff. Grass.
Oh.
Oh my god. And then it randomly I think I still have the notebook. If I still have it, I'll send you a picture of it, and it has your name. Um,
Oh
and it said,
shit.
and I was like, that's so weird. But yeah, that's why I really like this story, because I used to have the app. I
Mm-hmm.
never found anything. I never experienced anything like that, but
I
yeah,
guess that's when I died.
I guess
Now I'm just a
so.
spirit.
You probably are. That's why you're the ghoulish.
Gentlemen. Oh shit.
Period. Ah.
All right. Well, there you have it. Those are top three for now. But we're gonna look for some more. So we're going to be posting campfire stories every Sunday. We'll be doing different stories from around the internet, and if there's some that you would like for us to read through, you can always leave the links in the comment section or their names, whichever. Um, and yeah, everything else you want to say?
No.
All
Bye.
right.
I'm just kidding.
Deuces.
Um, no, yeah. Yeah, and please check out our links. It will be on the description bar.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys on the next video. Or sorry, I guess we'll see you guys on the next podcast.
See you next time.
Bye.